Welcome back to our live training session here with our 2011 Evo X MR. Now in our last video, we sorted out the load calculation and registration in our Evo X ECU. We've also started the fuel calibration process. This video, we're going to turn up the boost pressure. We're going to dial in our spark timing, take a look at the knock control, make sure that's all safe. We're going to make sure that our load registration is proper. We're also going to be then dialing in the rest of our fuel calibration process. Now in addition to this, because this is going to be the MR that has the dual clutch SST transmission, we need to make sure that we're having minimal clutch slip and that we have appropriate clutch pressure. So we're going to look how to balance the load registration and our clutch pressure and our clutch slip so that we don't damage the transmission. We're going to have a lot to cover, so let's jump into this live training session so we can get started. Welcome back to our live training session here with our 2011 Evo X MR. In our last video, we looked at the calibration process for sorting out our load registration between our MAF calcs and our MAP calcs. We made sure that we had those registering and reading approximate to each other so that any given time, whatever it's sourcing for the chosen calculation for the load registration, it's going to have a minimal difference between those, and we'll find that we have minimal variations or fluctuations in our spark timing, in our fuel or variable cam, or anything else that's sourcing our load registration from our ECU. We also started to work with our calibration fuel table, learning how to go in and make some appropriate fuel changes as we're doing that calibration process. Now in the last video, we were just off the waste actuator spring level, which is about 10 or 11 PSI on the stock turbo. We weren't building a lot of boost, we weren't making a lot of power. You take a look at the dyno graph, we're making about 220 pound-feet of torque at about 215 horsepower. So we're down on power, not really concerning because we're way off on the boost pressure we want to be at. This engine will run around 25, 26 pounds of boost once we start to turn the boost up, and it'll do that safely. So we need to go and increase the boost quite a bit, about maybe 14 or 15 pounds of boost. So we're going to see that the power's going to jump, the torque's going to go up, everything's going to fall in line. Now, the order of operations that I like to move in here, we want to make sure that we had our spark timing reduced. We've taken care of that in the very first video when we created our base file. We pulled about 4 or 5 degrees timing out of our low and high octane spark timing tables. So we reduce that down. We know that the engine's probably not going to make great power. That allows us to not worry about having knock conditions. We can dial in our fuel. Once we get our fuel dialed in, then we can go back in. We can start to dial in the boost control. Then we can start to dial in our variable cam timing, going back in and further refining our fuel if we need to go and sort that out, making sure that that's tracking as close to the target as possible. And the very last thing we need to do is then work with our spark timing and get that sorted out. We want to avoid any kind of knock conditions. We'll be taking a look at how we can see if we have the engine knocking and the ECU's reaction to the knock, working with a knock retard, and then working with our knock calibration tables if we need to go and desensitize the knock sensor. Now this is a stock engine, stock cam, stock block. We shouldn't have to touch the knock sensor reporting or sensitivity for that knock data. It should be valid, it should be accurate. So I'm going to hopefully leave that alone, and we're just going to look at, again, the calibration process of dialing all of this in. So the first thing I'm going to do here in this particular case, last video, again, we flashed the minor fuel changes and the very minor update to the mass airflow load registration. So this video, we're going to go in and actually turn up our boost request. So we're going to bring that up and evaluate our fuel delivery at a higher boost level. So what I'm going to do here is jump into my boost targets first. Now, a few things before we start to make our changes and flash it. We do have our RACS V3 patch applied here. That's going to allow us to do our direct boost baro comp. That means that our baro pressure sensor is going to be factored in to our boost control request. So when we're programming our target boost, we can actually program what we want it to be in gauge pressure. So if we want 20 pounds of boost, if we're referencing what we would want seeing on a gauge, that's what we're going to put into the table. This factors in our elevation because it's going to be looking at our baro pressure already in this particular patch as we're finding right here. We've applied it. That's going to allow us to ignore whatever the baro pressure is reading and then just focus on putting what we want for the actual gauge pressure target boost into our target table. Simplifies the boost control tuning greatly. So what I'm going to start off doing here is increasing the boost from my wastegate actuator level to about 20 pounds of boost. Now the first thing we're going to do is jump down our list here towards the bottom, and we're going to find that we have our PSI based boost, our direct boost right here. The atmospheric boost, I've set this to 14.7. That's approximately where I'm at right now. I'm going to be at sea level, maybe 100, 200 feet above sea level right now. So we're going to find that the pressure is going to be about 14.5, 14.7 PSIA, or the atmospheric reference pressure.
The next thing we're going to do is jump into our boost target tables, and we're going to program what we want to have in gauge pressure. So I want to put 20 psi of boost pressure as my target for the boost control system to start to work from. So what I'm going to do is jump in here from 3,000 and higher, and I'm going to type in a value to equals and do 20, so 20 psi. Then I'm going to give it some taper here. So as I go from maybe 1,500 to 3,000-ish, we'll do V. We'll start to bring some of that target in. Also in my part throttle area here, I'll do H, and I'm going to bring some of that boost target request. If I'm at 10 or 20% throttle, I don't need a target boost. I don't need my boost control starting to do anything. Once I start to get up in my throttle angle and I'm starting to pick up some vehicle speed, I want to bring in my boost. 50% throttle and higher, I'll have my target here at 20 psi. What I'm going to do is just take my entire table here. I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to move in here to my other target tables. We have a high gear and a low gear. High gear is going to apply to the higher gears, so third, fourth, fifth, sixth gear. Low is going to be applying to first or second gear, depending on how we set it all up. In this case, I'm going to make all my targets the same. I want to run the same boost target regardless of the gear that I'm in. So I'm going to just set these all to the same exact value. So just simply copying and pasting between these.
Thanks for checking out our teaser clip. If you want to see the rest of this video and more than 500 hours of current EFI training we have to offer, make sure you click right here. If you want to go and check out more teaser clips from this training course, click here, and you don't want to miss any of the videos we're going to be releasing on this channel, so make sure you subscribe and click here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.